Hey guys, welcome back. So in the last week, we had some good news. We launched the first edition of the TMG newsletter with just starting with a series from you, Byron, about kind of what it's like in your seat. And you were just sharing with us that you got a call from somebody after they had read it.
Yeah, I got a call from Joe McGill Sr, who was the owner of McGill Brothers Incorporated, who did masonry restoration, waterproofing, striping of parking lots, and we worked with his family business several years ago and helped Joe Sr. and Joey Jr. navigate the gaps, blind spots, and minefields that come with ownership succession. And Joey closed the gaps, developed all the skills he needed to, dealt with the blind spots of defection risk and what happens if something happens to Joey or Joe. And fortunately nothing did, but that we had plans in place. And then ultimately he commented on the fact that we navigated the minefields, and that he didn't use that term, but he said, "Hey, I really want to thank you for keeping Joey and I friendly. And Joey and I love each other, like spending time with each other. And we're both pretty strong-willed people, and it could have gone another way. And were it not for the guidance we received from your firm, there's no assurances that they would have had conflict." But he said he thought enough of it that he commented on how it made him feel more secure in the process. And he said, "I was a little suspicious of you at first because I didn't know what your motivations are, but I just wanted you to know that I thoroughly enjoyed working with you." So it was a real meaningful little check-in call, and it was totally random. As he said, "Byron, I haven't talked to you in a month of Sundays." So yeah. So
that's great.
Yeah, it's kind of like an alumni, John.
Amen. Oh,
yeah.
They've got to be, I don't know, 5-7 years into that change of control or post change of control.
That's a good point. I don't know how long Joey's been in own majority, but yeah, that was something that started probably 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe. I would guess he was, by COVID time, he was running. He at least started the change of control. I'm not sure exactly to look that up, but
yeah. So anyway,
what another great story.
Yeah.
And business we've done for that generation of McGill owners, I think we've done 4.
God, you're right. Yeah.
Of their family and their to what it was, I guess, the 3rd generation of McGill companies.
Yeah. Yeah. Tim McGill and his dad, Tim, and then Joe and his dad, and then Terry and
Eric and
Alex and
McGill Asbestos too, right?
Well, there was not a McGill that did that. I think it might have been a key employee.
Got it.
But we did. Okay. But we did talk to them, and we did work with them for a while. But yeah, we'd handled 3 McGill brothers businesses to the next generation.
That's fantastic. That's a cool story in itself.
Yeah.
I think they'd all say similar things to what Joe Sr. said.
Yeah, there might be some colorful words used, but yeah, it'd be. Yeah. So if there's anybody out there that's got a bunch of brothers in business and looking to get it, get things handled, know that we are used to dealing with siblings and cousins and the like.
The fact that it worked so amicably, it turned out that they're now the closest, father and son could be, friends, colleagues. Their relationship has transformed. I think we would see that often. I really enjoyed the beginning of your Diaries of a Cobbler's Kid reference because my perspective different than yours, but it's all of these collaborative succession journeys we've gone through that led me to have the maturity to be like, yeah, no hesitation. Are you kidding me? Why would we not want to continue down this road together and build a business that, could be 10x or just so much greater than it could be without the sum of its parts. So I just thought that particular story that I saw this morning was meaningful to me too. And it's funny because it was forwarded by another McGill who has had a good experience and has done tremendous things in his next generation of ownership, and Tim and McGill Restoration.
Yeah, that was Tim Jr. sent back a fairly colorful response and like, wow, cool. So yeah, it's been
and he's got really good insight because he you led him through that. Connor and I have both worked with him and see him as colleagues, and he made it. I have know which conversations he's referencing and how grateful we are and how everything's worked out in our own journey.
yeah.
And still evolving.
Yeah.
Alex coming on board makes it multi-generational family, and so we're practicing what we preach internally as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's a dynamic, John.
Maybe
that
after some time.
Yeah.
I'm going to be really interested as you fire up your own stories and capture those, and we get the opportunity to share them. But I think that it's going to be invaluable for the people that we do work with and that are considering working with us, and then also just like the community at large of owners and successors and key employees is going to be that. Well, what Daniel talked about was like this Faulkner book, As I Lay Dying, where it's like one scene told by 12 different people, and you kind of learn something new from everybody's telling, and it's going to be, I think, really interesting to see the different perspectives and the different challenges overcome over time. It's going to be, I think, a really compelling story as it comes together.
Well, yeah, John, we could take Scott Heine as an example, and your perspective and my perspective, because we were both very intimate. It was initially me, then it was you, then it was me, then it was you, and ended with you. So it was just that was a really nice representation of the arc of relationship and issues that an owner faces over a 20-year relationship.
20-year period.
Yeah.
And went to market more than once.
Yeah.
And knew he wasn't ready. Spent the next 7 years working with both of us to get his company ready. And then ultimately, went through a successful acquisition process that has done tremendously well. A year and a half into it, he's never been happier. So another transformative relationship, and another quite the compliment. He has a college-age son who wants to work for us. He had that good of an experience, so that's probably one of the best compliments we've received from someone who's gone through the full process. I mean, all the way from protecting the business and the business continuity plan, bringing on minority shareholders that were key employees to tie them, buying some of those minority shareholders out as he built the business to be ready for a third-party sale and get the right management team in place, to then underwriting a business and bringing it to market and having a successful sale in 2025. So that would have been, certainly a 20-year relationship starting in the mid-2000s.
Yeah. Yeah, it would have been. I remember sitting in the office of their distributor or their dealership for the Valley Irrigation up in Hardington with Scott and his 3 partners at the time, and they're all looking at me like I'm a Martian, and so I got, as you can imagine, the guys that were there, the level of the expectation that I was going to be narcissistic or egocentric, So yeah, then we went out, had beers and quite a few beers, and everything turned out all right.
Enough beers to level the playing field.
Yeah, right. I proved
the Iron Curtain.
I proved I could hang, and then you proved that it was part of our culture.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. A few years later, when we hosted that in Omaha, I recall that as well at a national Valley Irrigation conference.
Yeah,
here in Omaha.
Yeah, so
not sure I was on time to work the next day, but we certainly proved we could hang on the front end.
Yeah, that was part of the due diligence process on Scott's part.
Yes, it certainly was.
So
no, I think candidly that's part of it's natural. It's not forced, but we create a platform of trust through mixture of empathy. I think just being someone that can be trusted and talked to and relied upon. So that comes from showing that you can do the work, but some of the things that outside of the professional, 9 to 5 that made us transform the professional trustworthiness to be truly almost in that scenario included as a, trusted member of almost the company's family. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no,
You get an opportunity to sit in that coveted MTA seat.
that's right. That's right.
That most trusted advisor, if you're behaving and you're following through and paying attention to the details. And over 20 years, that's quite a little attention to detail, all the stuff that happened there. So I remember when you were working on that project when you were nearly brand new, and I suggested to you that you should get on the phone and call the CPA who was giving us fits and talk to him every Friday just so he could establish some rapport with him. Why don't you tell that story? That story is a remarkable
that's
representation.
Another transformative story. Amazing what consistency and hard work can lead to ultimately through doing the job and following through on what we said we're going to do. This rewinds back more than 10 years, probably closer to 15, where this company we're talking about had to go through an audit. And so as part of, and this is simultaneously with the first attempt to go to market to sell the business. And so we made the commitment that I would call the CPA every Friday to get an update on the status of the audit that the CPA was collaborating with us on behalf of the business owner to prepare for and monitor. So for a period of about six months, I called the company CPA every Friday to check in like clockwork at 9 a.m. every Friday. And some weeks it would have, a significant update that we'd have to go help run down and get documented or help relay information to Scott, and sometimes it would just be a simple check-in. But the point was we did it consistently enough that we, one, got the job done and passed the audit actually with no penalty of any kind. But we created a relationship with not just the company, but the company's CPA. So we went up there after the audit was passed and sat down with that CPA and said, "Hey, it's been great working with you for the past 6 months. We love working with clients like Scott. Who else might you have that we could work through challenging and complex initiative work, whether that was a sale or a valuation or a merger?" And we got introduced, went up there, had that in-person meeting within a week, and introduced to that CPA's other largest client, who we ended up doing valuation for and a merger for initially of two companies that he owned, a manufacturing arm and a distribution arm of the same commonly owned company. And that was 10, 11 years ago today. We're still working with that client. They've grown to an over $50 million enterprise. Another multi-generation business is three children.
Point of clarity, John, 50
Yes,
million
please.
of what? 50 million of what?
Just value.
Okay.
$50 million just business value in the entity that we merged. A couple related real estate entities, another actual distribution entity, and all sit under the same umbrella now. So we're pushing 100 million all in of those enterprises, and I'm still the most trusted advisor in that relationship, working towards ultimately his exit, which will likely be to a third party with his family involved going forward. Another really transformative relationship that's been one of our best clients for a long period of time, that comes from another one of our great clients that we've gone all the way through our process and used probably every one of the services we have in our organization.
I think the story could use a little bit of my perspective now from my seat. So John would have been at the time maybe just a year out of law school.
Yeah.
And Connor literally had just joined us, and he was a year or two out of Deloitte, and they call regarding evaluation, and John and Connor are on the call, taking the call on the speakerphone, and I'm standing at the whiteboard and I'm writing questions on the whiteboard that they need to ask. And after a while, John just waved me off.
Yeah. Got it. I got this. Well,
I got this. And so that, but there were some very senior level people in those conversations, like partner level of New York or Wall Street or some major firm was on that call with you. And I remember John just bearing down. He just stopped looking at me. He didn't wave his hand. He just stopped looking at me because he was so focused. And sure enough, they did the valuation, which was complicated. And that was essentially the catalyst to this 10 or 11-year relationship. And so John has not only been involved in family meetings around how are we going to dispose of this company to the family, or what's family involvement and all the dynamics that come with that interpersonal conflict potentially of multiple siblings in a very ultra high net worth business environment, and navigating as the actual general contractor running the job with the lawyers and the other advisors essentially coming to John for direction. And it all started with a little valuation for two companies to merge together. And now you're basically sitting on the owner's board of advisors, and you are the most trusted advisor who gets the call. So it's great. It's a great story from the way it started to where it is now.
Absolutely. No, thank you for that. It's the uniqueness of what we've been able to work through here, because we work thoroughly through these opportunities and do what we say we're going to do. That has now evolved over a decade into multi-generation guiding of ownership, where we're influencing the estate, a private foundation that's attached that takes gets a portion of income from the enterprise to fulfill the family's mission long-term, with the stated goal ultimately. And this is what's really meaningful, to have this level of impact, is that the exit for this majority owner's goal is to make that private foundation perpetual. So we now have influence on something that's going to impact countless lives going forward through the work we do in the M&A space.
You get an opportunity to make an impact, and in many cases, it's not able to be measured in maybe in your lifetime in that particular case.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's pretty compelling, pretty humbling to be part of it, and something that that's why we have such passion for what we do. It's something we love to do, and get to have really meaningful impact relationships that create value beyond dollars and cents.
Yeah. So Alex and I had a conversation today with a client who happened to have the distinction of being the first Pella window and door distributor successor that we structured at the McFarland Group starting back in 2017. And so we checked in with our old friend John down in Pella Products of Kansas City, and he had done his transferable value index, and he wanted an interpretation. So we spent an hour with him going through the results of his interpretation, and it just dawned on me as I was talking to him that he had such a great experience in the buying of that business from Chen, and that, again, these guys weren't related, so they were somewhat, in tough negotiations, but it worked out all right because we kept everybody, I guess, honest. And he was sitting at dinner with this girlfriend of his wife, and she's talking about her family business and how they're going through all this growth, and there's, her siblings are coming in, and there's key employees that are asking for opportunity, and she's like, what the heck, who does somebody talk to when you have those kinds of issues? And John goes, well, let me tell you about a guy. And so John referred Rachel to me, and I met with Rachel and her dad, and they had a really, really great family highway construction company, and lots of really good stuff was happening there. And so I met with Rachel and her dad, and now we were able to work with them, and we put together a family office platform and interviewed the senior people and tied the senior people to the plan, and made sure that if something bad happened, that nothing bad would happen next, because it's usually the thing that happens after the bad thing that causes everybody to go, shucks, So we did all that, and I remember as I'm doing that, I'm talking to Robert, who is the founder, and I get this sense he's like, God, are we ever going to get through this? And I'm like, God, I sure hope so, because I don't like talking about this any more than you do. And of course, we're talking about estate planning.
Right.
And I'm like, Robert, trust me, this will be the last time we have to talk about this, at least at this level. And so, of course, now 3 years later, we never talk about that because that's all in place. And now all the conversations are about the big future and who's going to be the successor and who's doing what with their resources and what side businesses they're dealing with and the challenges with their core business. So it's just an evolution. I think about
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, to me, it's like a different way to say it. Get the things that aren't as fun to talk about, that are outside of your control,
Yeah.
done, and review them manually if you need to make sure that nothing's changed in your world. But that's it. And then to spend the time thinking about the fun stuff and how you can win as an organization, what that means for the shareholders and stakeholders individually, and put all your energy there. We've seen scenarios, one in recent history, where everything got stuck there because there was disagreement, and they never were able to get to the fun stuff in largest growth phase the business has ever experienced. So yeah, I'd say address the boring, not fun, difficult conversations that come with business continuity or estate planning, and then move on to the fun stuff of how you harvest dollars out of here or hit your goals or sell for multiple, whatever your goal may be.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. I find that many professional advisors, they are either resistant to nudge and get their clients into that meeting. I know that it was the attorney for them had already done a bunch of advanced planning for them. And then I was aware of all the work, and there was a need for it to be really taken. They were already at a level 8 of complexity, and we needed to go to a 9 or a 10 just to make sure everything turned out the way they wanted in the case of a premature death of one of the founders. And there's 2 brothers who founded a just spectacular business. And so we took care of all of that, and I got him to the lawyer. And I remember the first meeting after we walked out of the lawyer's office, he just looked at me and goes, "Man, how much more of this do we have to do?" I go, "Hopefully not much more."
Hopefully it's done.
Yeah. So then I had the foresight to assign the project coordination and the leadership of that effort after we had the meeting with the attorney to the daughter, who was being designated as let's say, the business manager of the consolidated businesses. She didn't know how to do the construction, but she understood people, and she was learning finance. We actually had Rob Almond, our finance analyst, spend 6 months with her and take her through common financial terms so she could read and understand a balance sheet and a P&L and working capital, which was then gave her the terminology so she could talk to attorneys or accountants or bankers or other business owners in such a way that she could sit at the table. So that was nice to be able to provide that to her and give her that responsibility. Now she owned that whole project, and she has this great book that's made up of color-coded. Each outcome has its own color, and all the decisions that were made are in that color-coded book. And so if anybody has any questions, she's able to retrieve the reasons why they chose that and what the administrative responsibilities are. So it's turned out to be just an excellent way to get someone on the inside into a position of authority around something that is so vitally important, and not have that be offboarded to an outside advisor. So everybody felt, although nobody knew what happened, but there was like a sense of, well, at least that's done.
Absolutely. Well, it just goes to show you the importance of understanding your business. And we've had scenarios that if you haven't had that knowledge or didn't understand the implications of an agreement you may have signed, what that can mean for your value, what that can mean for whether your acquires inside or outside, what that means for the next buyer or your ability to even secure the business going forward because of the risk that exists. So you have to eliminate the risk, the blind spots, the minefields in order to have a successful transferable business to the next generation, regardless of who your buyer is.
Yeah. So tell me about something that's happened with you recently, John, that's around the transferable value of you're talking to owners every day, and what are you seeing or hearing or saying?
Yeah, I think, first and foremost, it's talking about the team, who else on the team is playing a critical role.
Okay.
And then how much authority do they have in that role, or is it tied up into one or two owners that are ultimately hindering the value of the business, the transferability of the business, because the decision making or roles and responsibility has been held into a smaller group. I think that's the first thing I would start at to make it transferable. And then it would be the sustainability of their business. Let's look at what their pipeline backlog, what the revenue mix is, just where is it coming from, how predictable is it, and then how diversified is it? Is it concentrated in one large customer or not? Which isn't always, necessarily a deal killer. Your customer might be Amazon, and you might be running orders through them at times. They're building data centers for them, and consistently can point to backlog. But you need to understand the impact that would have to value. Those would be the two things I would start. And then from there, it kind of can get a little more granular into the industry they're in themselves, what the sustainability of that might be, the outlook for that industry.
So I want to tease out a story from you on a specific conversation I know you've been having, and of course we want to anonymize everything with this. But you've been talking to a general contractor that's been in a really high growth state. That general contractor has been adding to a senior executive staff intentionally to solve some problems. What has been your observation, if you can just share, on the the addition of the people and the attempt to reorganize to reduce reliance on the owner or the owners?
Yeah, no, appreciate that. Good news is they're finding the right people. A couple of the key hires they've made or the promotions they've made within are the right people. The issue they're running into is disagreement and potential minefield amongst the ownership group. So there's disagreement, not as much on the direction to scale and hire key people. They agree on that, but they can't agree on how to really value the business themselves and reward themselves, which is the prerequisite to how they can reward these key people that are playing very impactful roles in the business. Millions of earnings these 4 or 5 key individuals are influencing for this company that's experienced 30 to 50% growth year over year the past 5 years. And so they have so many good things going for them, but really what's getting in the way is the ability to have a collaborative, respectful platform of trust between the owners that's really putting them in a position of, and you're going to laugh when I say this, but the spin of indecision that we've seen at the highest level of running a business, because they can't agree on simple things. And then the layers that you have to peel back of an onion of why they're doing that. Years of not communicating properly, emotion that's attached to that, potentially credit for who's created value here versus over there, who's managing this relationship versus over here. It can get to, there's a reason the slippery slope exists, because you start going down that slope, it can erode pretty quickly. And that's what's happened here, is it's eroded to a point where they've had to engage additional professionals to facilitate the conversation, to get what should be the thing that you referenced earlier, that you wade through, have the tough conversations and mitigate that risk and protect the business, and then move on. And the interesting thing is they both know that they need to protect the business, but they haven't been willing to come to that platform together and make those decisions, which, hopefully we can ultimately work through so they can enjoy the success this business is having, and most importantly, reward those guys that are attributing to that, because they're not going to stay there forever.
Yeah.
Without that reward.
So I guess if you're in a partnership or you have co-owners and those co-owners have authority, I'm not talking about, super minority shareholders, but if you're in a partnership with somebody else who you're equal, or chances are that there's any disagreement, it'll hold everything up in the way of making progress towards creating a favorable or desirable outcome for the business. So if you're listening and you're having some disagreements with a partner, before you bring any discussion to your team and going to make any commitments to them, it'd be our recommendation to do what, John?
To go through a process and get to a point where you can make those decisions. Go through what I would call the power suite.
Yeah. So, well, we've developed this transferable value report process, which brings the power sweep in as a component. And for those of you who are not familiar, I coined the term the power sweep about 15 years ago, I think it was. And that was basically the most common recommendations process that we went through, which was what happens to the business, what happens to the business liabilities, what happens to the key employees if the owner or the owners should die or become totally disabled. And we knew that had to be done for everybody we worked with, so we just coined that as the power sweep. And now that we've got this transferable value report, the power sweep fits into that as a service as to what needs to happen in order for your business to be prepared under adverse conditions and to get agreement on that early. And then in that same report, you get what would make sense for your talent in terms of keeping your talent engaged and motivated to achieve your goals. And then maybe lastly, but not least importantly, what's the best way for you to think about your ultimate disposition? Should I be looking at management as my future, as my buyer or my family? Or is it more, I want to really take this thing to another level and try and get the attention of some financial backed firm that is in my industry that is really coveting what I've built and sell it and cash out and move on, which is where John spends all of his mental capital helping to structure. So
it's such a great point there. And it's a story I was thinking about as you were teeing me up there, not to pick on this client, but they have stalled out in that same position. And it's so key what you said about agreeing to that up front when there's not a triggering event, when there's not potential to have a triggering event, because good luck getting the agreement done when you think that there's a likelihood that's going to be triggered right after you sign the document.
Yeah.
And that's what stalled out. In that same time frame, we had engaged another client about the same time who was third month clear of their third-party sale that resulted in a significant valuation to about 12 times earnings, and named a term. Name your terms. And the reason is he had a management team that was tied in. He did have a minority owner that trusted him explicitly through the process. We engaged through the process, but really gave all the decision-making to the owner because they had a platform of trust, and then the team below them all fall into that place. So they were able, in the same time frame it's taken one business to be spinning on the same issue, a company was underwritten and sold to a third party in a successful acquisition process. So it's being, making sure you're set up and being intentional, being proactive so that you can actually, execute on the vision, the fun part about where you want to go with your business and ultimately the disposition of your ownership during your lifetime to who you choose to sell it to.
Yeah. So, Alex, we've kind of dominated this conversation. I'm sorry about our hog in here. You've been just patiently sitting on the sidelines, maybe having a cold beer, watching the tennis match that John and I are in right now.
Yeah, I was enjoying it. I was just kind of doing that move. Luckily, there was no grunting. So, but I feel like it was a great exchange from you guys today, and I think it was really cool to see this particular way of communicating kind of like coming together. I think that the promise there is huge, and just like this capturing those stories as they come up, because it's so hard to like call on them without some reason to. And so it's great to see them get captured and shared. I would propose that we probably have our episode for this week, fellas, and we call it a wrap there and come back together next week.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, good job, John.